Hey everybody, welcome to CAF Warbird Tube, the show where we talk about World War II, aviation, history, and so much more. Warbird Tube is produced by the Commemorative Air Force, the world's largest flying museum. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and honor through flight and living history experiences. The CAF began the Warbird movement more than 65 years ago, and thanks to the support of individuals like you, we continue to grow strong. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and now our host, Steve Buss. Thanks for watching and keep 'em flying.
Good evening and welcome to CAF Warbird Tube. This is episode number 172 of Warbird Tube. Glad to have you with us here tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Grumman F8F Bearcat, operated by the CAF's Southern California wing, and we'll talk to two gentlemen who are very intimately involved in that project in just a moment. But before we get started, please do us a favor. If you haven't already done so, take a second to like, share, and subscribe and follow us. And if you do subscribe on YouTube, click that bell icon and you'll get notifications about new episodes of Warbird Tube when they are live. Now, if you have some questions that come up during the presentation, go ahead and just put those in the chat box and we'll try to answer them either during the presentation or we'll save time at the end and get all of your questions answered. Warbird Tube is made possible by the Commemorative Air Force. If you'd like to learn more about the CAF, our aircraft, where you can see the aircraft, or how you can become a member and join the fun, just come visit our website, commemorativeairforce.org. Well, joining me right now from Southern California, where I understand it is not only warm, but sunny, as it always is in California, right? John McMahon and Robert Herberg, gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
John, let's start with you. How did you get involved with the Southern California wing?
Well, warbirds have always been a passion of mine. Actually, it's really how I got started in aviation. I went to a Plains of Fame air show back in 1977, and they fired up, and I was hooked. And I joined the Navy in '85, and I've been in aviation ever since, in maintenance side mostly. And I finally got to a point in my life where I had time in 2015 to join the CAF. I still work actively in aviation. I manage a fleet of Gulfstream jets currently, and then in my spare time I get out to Camarillo, in which case I'm also the head of maintenance there, and managing the myriad of warbirds they have there, and in addition to crew chief 4 and help on another 5th as well. And this is probably my biggest project that I currently have, which is our Bearcat restoration, which we started in 2020.
And you worked on other restorations for the unit before that as well, right?
Yes, sir. When we had a Yak 3, I took that over on day 2 on 2015, and we brought it back to airworthy in 2017. Solving a lot of the thermodynamic problems, which is a lot of fun for me. I love problem solving, and that was a really fun one. Unfortunately, that airplane is no longer with us, but don't worry, there's plenty of other challenges ahead. So,
well, Robert, how about you?
Steve, my last few years in uniform, I was in the Air Force. Got involved with the air show here in Las Vegas at a fairly decent sized Nellis Air Force Base air show. And during that time, just got smitten like you wouldn't believe with warbirds, since I was kind of on the op side of the air show and dutifully involved, and through a string of successive years where CAF SoCal would bring in some of their fleet up, befriended them. And kind of on my flying side, was able to get into part ownership of a T6, so built up a lot of, tail dragger time and warbird time, and so I volunteered back in 2010 with CAF SoCal, and have worked my way from whatever's needed, filling up oil jugs. Got into the fighter program and got some time in the Bearcat. And working through the airplanes that I have been able to fly down there, I really take great confidence in John's ability to solve problems and get the airplanes flying beautifully.
Good. What's it like to fly the Bearcat compared to some of the other fighters?
Well, that they all have their nuances and their joys. Not only is it an honor, but it's easy to fly. The way our unit does it, they kind of progress you through the fighters. So by the time you're strapping on a Bearcat, excuse me, a Bearcat, you're ready for the acceleration. But it is, ergonomically, I'm not sure they had that word back in 1943, but it is just laid out so pilot friendly that it's super easy. Everything's right where you want it. It's a Grumman, right? It's a Grumman piston engine fighter, so it's great and easy to fly. I haven't had to employ it in combat, so that's probably a different side to the tale. But flying it in the air show and today's air show airspace environment, it's a joy. Easy to fly.
It might be hard to believe, but there may be some people watching who don't really know about the Bearcat itself. And the Grumman Ironworks, of course, the Wildcat, the Hellcat, the Bearcat, Tiger Cat, a whole list of aircraft. But just tell us a little bit about the operational history of the Bearcat in World War II.
You want me to take that one, John?
Sure.
I can start with it. I think that its main mission was to zoom climb and shoot down Zeros. And it actually, to the zoom climb topic, it held from 1946 and early 60s a time to climb record of 94 seconds at 10,000 feet. So that's cooking. So this is a pinnacle of piston aviation right here. This thing really moves. Unfortunately, they didn't make very many of them because they never actually saw real action in World War II. They only made 1,283 ever. So it's a very rare machine nowadays. There are a few around, but really not many, and the parts are really hard to find. So we're very, very fortunate to have a complete machine. I mean, albeit challenges, like I said, but that's part of the fun. So there you go. Rob?
To pick it up, as John mentioned, it didn't see combat under a United States flag in World War II, though it was operational and, as I understand, steaming towards the theater when the middle of August of 45 came around. And then it did serve in the fleet, the primary carrier-based fighter in our fleet until it started to get replaced by jets. And it did see combat under a French flag in Indochina in the early 50s. And kind of ironically enough, John mentioned it was designed as an interceptor and a fighter, but it saw combat under a French flag as a ground attack airplane.
I need to add a little more too, if you don't mind. So I have sort of a connection with the Bearcat because when I served in the Navy, I served with the Fighting Redcocks, and it was VA-22 when I was in it, but the initial designation was VF-63, which guess what? They flew Bearcats. That's when the frog started. So that's what you see later. The paint. That's the reason for the paint scheme because I have the connection with Squadron. I'm proposing to have this restoration be painted in those colors, but we'll see how that goes.
Very good.
Hey, Steve, can I add one thing based on the picture you're showing? Mm-hmm. We are super fortunate to have both a Hellcat and a Bearcat. And those two airplanes were the first two mounts of the Blue Angels, the Navy Blue Angels. So, that's what makes that photograph that we're looking at so poignant is that in 46, from first with the Hellcat and then moving to the Bearcat, the Blue Angels flew those airplanes.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Thank you. How well did the Bearcat stack up against other contemporary fighters of the early 50s, like the Hawker Sea Fury? I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to compare because we're kind of moving from the prop age to the jet age, but any thoughts?
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, thanks, John. Yeah, that is a hard one, Steve. Since we don't have any empirical, understanding of prop airplanes fighting prop airplanes in that era. And then in the Indochina, they were doing ground attack. So just stacking up performance numbers, it could certainly climb better than any of the existing fighters that we had. We know it was focused on the Pacific Theater, and the Japanese Armed Services were producing or starting to produce some fairly advanced, more advanced airplanes, but they never got to dance. But it was designed the way it was designed. It could climb like a bat, like John mentioned. It was fast. Many of the piston fighters of that era were all bumping up against the sound barrier, and compressibility and all that. But it was also, with the lightweight in its construction, it had great maneuverability as well. So really a non-answer, but the best I can do.
There you go. Well, John, we'll put you on the hot spot now. Richard, who's watching tonight, would like to know what's the most challenging aspect of keeping the number of Warbirds that you have in Southern California airworthy.
Well, it depends on, well, let me just go down the list. You can see that Hellcat is another passion of mine. It's also one that I also am crew chief of. And she is just a sweetheart airplane. But she needs a lot of love. These things are 80 years old now. So to answer your question, also heavily involved with our Spitfire, which is probably our bigger challenge, just because, and the Zero, there again, another, these essentially all these Warbirds, they've been going through so many hands over the years. It's kind of like a kit plane in the end. It definitely mirrors the manuals a lot, but then all of a sudden you have other changes that you don't expect or and so on. But so that's another challenge that you run into. But the thankfully, technology and being experimental, you can actually build parts as long as they're like for like, and they meet engineering specs and so forth. But not just not structural members necessarily, other than sheet metal. But you can make these things go. But there still are parts available that you can find in the industry, unbelievably. But with technology, with the engines, that's the biggest thing. If we didn't have technology to keep these engines going, we'd be dead a long time ago. That's really where the rubber meets the road, because these engines do wear out. And thankfully, we have nice support from, in this case, with the round motor. Anderson Automotive is a great asset to us, or vintage V12s. In the case of V12s, they really make this thing happen. And that's, these are really just, I call it a sideways helicopter. This thing is all engine. It's really a simple machine compared to say a corporate jet in grand scope, but that's where it lives. And also the gear is probably the hardest challenge of all this stuff, because you're just not going to get gear parts. You have to keep fixing them and keep maintaining them. And thankfully seals are available, but the structural members are, I call it unobtainium. It's just really, really, really difficult to find gear parts. So that's I would say, to answer, that's probably the best answer to your question there. But there's a myriad of challenges that you might expect, depending on what is failing and what you need to do.
Let's talk about the specifics of this restoration of the Bearcat.
Okay, so we decided in 2020. I actually took over as crew chief on this airplane in 2020, and it was showing a lot of signs. The engine was certainly using too much oil, and we decided to take that off and send it out for overhaul. It's just standard. What happens on these engines is the rear cylinders get hotter than the front ones, which is easy to understand. So what suffers mostly is the valve guides start to wear, and they start using. So you expect about a gallon an hour of oil usage. But this one was burning 2 gallons an hour. So it's too much. And sure enough, when we got the report back, that's what was wrong. And then we decided, well, okay, this thing, you could see a lot of earmarks of other things happening. Namely, we got into the aileron. This also has it's all purely mechanical and no cables for the ailerons. It's all mechanically driven with bearings and tubes and such. And each one has a link that goes around the gum bays. And those links were all very, very tired. In fact, they had a couple that were completely gone. So, and then you just go on to the gear, and I took apart the struts and found corrosion in there, and which we were able to replace, and also the wing blocks were also worn. These are serious things that you just got to get. So I just kept it's like a little. Let's find out. Soon you want to make it look beautiful in the end, so the only way to get there is to tear it completely down and strip and repaint it, which we're doing. And then we got into all the plumbing. And the plumbing, most I would say 80% of the plumbing had something wrong. So we're replacing or repairing all of that plumbing, 100% of it. Of course, all new cables, all new, rebuilding every actuator, every strut, every component's getting tension. So it just turned into this big animal that we didn't intend to initially, but you can't ignore. So it's just it's the way it goes. It was last restored in 1993, and it wasn't even taken down this far in that time. So we're going deeper than they did. So it just needs it. I mean, in some cases it's never been apart. So that's kind of where we're at. But it's come back together.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it's a typical restoration. Once you peel off one piece, you find something else that needs to be fixed.
Yeah. Yep. You keep going, and the more you peel, the more you find. And it's just, thankfully, we have not found corrosion, which is very, very, well, of course, when you cover it with oil constantly, it's hard to make erosion. So that's and it's always hangered. So that's the other good thing. Corrosion is very, very difficult. Then you're getting into, which I've seen other folks, they have corrosion or they have bent spars or other bigger problems, which we don't have, thankfully. So that's the great news. I don't have to go that far down.
There you go. Well, we're looking now at the details of all the things that you're planning on doing. What is what's the timeline for the restoration? You've already been at it a couple of years, but that's looking forward.
Everybody wants to ask me, when's it going to go? Well, believe me, I'm the first one that wants it to go. Trust me on that. The problem is we're a volunteer organization. I need help. We have a big manpower problem. That's why I'm crew chiefing, 4+ airplanes and maintenance officer. I need help, and and you really have to to do it properly. You really need an AP license to crew chief an airplane, to be the leader of the project. And we're lacking those folks, but we need everybody. I could use anybody. And so that's the other reason for, coming online with you guys and to see any interest folks. I can teach anybody anything, and don't worry if you don't have any experience. We'd love to have you and get you knee deep in these airplanes, and whatever flavor that you want to take it. We need everybody, even if it's not even maintaining it, media, you name it. We need help. And that's the other reason, right now, to answer your main question, I'm repainting everything. We only have a couple of painters that are part-time, and without it painted, you kind of can't really put it together. So that's kind of what we're up against. We have a lot of stuff done, but we've still got a long way to go. That's probably the toughest mountain right now is in order to reassemble, I've got to have things stripped and repainted. We've stripped most everything, but the repainting is going very slowly. But I love the guys that do it, but they're giving all they can. But
sure,
that's it.
Yeah, and if people want to join, it's your website is the best place to go. CAF SoCal, CAFSOCAL.com, and you can join. They're like you said, they're always looking for volunteers, and you don't necessarily have to be in Southern California, in the Camarillo area, to volunteer. You've got members from all over. I mean, Robert was talking about being in Las Vegas.
Yeah. People come from all over, and it's just all however big your passion is. And because I'm about 90 miles away myself. So I either drive up or fly up, and that's how I get there. But that it gives you an idea how big my passion is for CAF and working on these really extremely rare machines. In some cases, as you know, many of our airplanes, there's a handful or less existing in the world, and sometimes only a couple even fly, and we take pride in all of our stuff flies. So that's a very important. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be interested if it didn't. So,
yeah. So what are we looking at? What are the components that we're looking at right now in this slide?
All right. So the top left is that's the horizontal stab with the rudder or the vertical stab removed, and we of course taken the horizontal stab off too, and gone through it and NDT'd it and so forth and repainted it. So that's actually back on as well as the vertical stab. And then just below that is obviously the engine before it got removed. And then below that, you can see that's the firewall with the engine out and all the plumbing and stuff before it got removed. The red bottle there is the fuel filter. You can see the oil lines and fuel lines and such in there. There's a lot going on. And then to go to the top middle, that is, you're looking straight at the oil cooler. There's two oil coolers, one on each side. And then the very middle picture is you're looking down in behind the instrument panel. You see all your instrument hoses and so on right there. And then another picture on the very bottom right is, again, the firewall. Just a more expanded view. You can kind of see the gear, and then you see the ducts there that feed the not only the air to the carburetor, but the air to cool the oil coolers. It goes through the ram air from the leading edge. And then above that, what is that there? Oh, that's looking at, I can't really tell. I'm going to zoom in. Oh, that's the engine. So that's still the engine there.
Right side of the accessory section.
Okay, I was looking at the one below that, but the hoses there are your scat tubes and stuff in the accessory area for cockpit air and air to cool the alternator. Those are your red hoses, and then a variety of other hoses that do a variety of things, hydraulic hoses and fuel hoses and so forth. But that's kind of what's going on there.
Any idea how many feet or thousands of feet of tubing go into the plumbing of this airplane?
Oh, I'd have to guess. I haven't added that up, but we've gone in and replaced a lot of it. In fact, my standard is we're going with stainless. Anything we replace is going to be stainless, just for it's more rigid, but it's going to hold up a lot better than the aluminum. I'm not going to replace all of it just because it's just too daunting. So if the aluminum pipe is in good condition, which is honestly pretty rare, probably only 10% of those are going to remain on. Those are usually the thicker ones or the bigger ones that are holding up. The smaller ones, just remember, this is a sideways helicopter, so it vibrates to high heaven, and that's why. And she's tired and old, so she needs a lot of love, and then we're giving it to her. So there we are, and there's me with the engine, but we're taking off accessories off the back of it before it went out for overhaul. And then you see the brakes there that haven't been removed yet, but the cockpit's completely empty, which we had to strip it and paint it as well. So that's about to go back together. That's finally painted. So.
About how long of a lead time is there for the engine rebuild?
The engine took, you'd be surprised how quickly it goes because, like I said, the support we have from Anderson Automotive, it's about 6 months, typical, 6 to 8 months, depending on how much they have to get into it. But these big round engines are, you can take all the jugs off and replace anything. It's much simpler. In fact, we just had to replace one of the jugs on the Hellcat to rescue it from Livermore because we had a big problem with it. So it just took a few days to do that. So versus say a V12, it's a lot more involved. put it lightly, on a V12. But so it's because you can actually remove the whole section, it's much simpler in the grand scope.
I think the title of this slide says it all: blood, sweat, and dollars, which is one of the reasons why we're featuring the airplane, is because it's part of our 12 planes of Christmas, our annual fundraiser, and you're hoping to raise some capital so that you can continue the restoration. Is there any particular area that you're concentrating on now with the proceeds from 12 planes of Christmas, or is it an overall effort to just continue the restoration of the airplane?
It's twofold. It's right now, I'm asking for approval to overhaul our carburetor, and that number is about $12,000. Because that's just something you have to do when you do this kind of effort. And then, as you can imagine, there's a myriad of, nuts, bolts, seals. We got to replace all the cabling. It just goes on and on. Actually, I'm going to redesign the whole instrument panel because, again, with modern technology, we don't need a lot of the old instruments anymore, because you get, say, one AV30, you're going to upgrade the radio and the transponder, and obviously, but we already have ADS-B on it, but you really only need probably less than half you just use your primary instruments, your airspeed altimeter, vertical speed, on and on, those, just the standard primary stuff, slipskid ball, that sort of thing. But we mostly navigate by GPS, so the days of VOR are kind of gone. But that's what we're going to go with, and end up with iPhone mount instead of all the rest. So you can ForeFlight is a very effective tool. So that
certainly is. Yes.
Most people go with.
That brings up a question too. Is that when you're doing the restoration, there are some things. I mean, you want it to be as authentic as possible, but yet there are some more modern avionics, for instance, brake systems, things like that. What are some of the more modern, not concessions, but upgrades that you're taking into consideration for the airplane?
Most of the cockpit is actually, I'm going to upgrade the fire extinguishing system. It had an older style halon system, and we're going to use a jet style. We're going to have two shots for the accessory bay. And it's kind of a globe bottle, which you actually use. I've seen quite often in the corporate jets, which is exactly what we're going to use. We got a great company we're working with, which is donating the bottles, but we have to pay for the charging and the squibs and so forth. And also there's like a softball sized bottle that was for the cockpit if necessary. So a lot of safety incorporated, and this is going to upgrade from a mechanically actuated to an electric actuated fire system, which is going to be a really nice safety feature. And the rest of the upgrades are just going to be cockpit related. I think all the other things are going to be, as far as upgrades go, like I said, going to go replace the aluminum with stainless tubing as applicable. We're doing a lot of nice repairs to, like, say, the inside of the gear where we had to replace components and stuff. But we're just like, for example, like the gear, the outer wing panel door locks, or when you fold the wings down and lock them in place, those pins were very worn, so we had to machine new ones to make it lock appropriately, like to be safe, like you're supposed to. But I mean, I wouldn't call those really upgrades; they're just more repairs and fixes and so forth. But the brakes also need a new. They were seeping a lot, so we're going to have to do some machining there. But again, that's just repairs. So that's kind of it, really. But just, and obviously, everything that I can get my hands on is going to be made to new condition. Like all the bearings that I can find are all replaced, every 100%. My big standard is no old hardware goes back in for obvious reason. So that's a lot of hardware.
Indeed. So, a few other questions that have come in from our audience. Parker just commented and said, "Thank you for bringing history back to life. I'd like to know how many flight hours are on the Bearcat since it was rolled out of the factory."
Well, if you bear with me, I can. Since this Bearcat's been out.
Yes.
Okay. mean, a few clicks on my computer and I can tell you. Let's see.
Well, while you're looking that up, Robert, here's one we'll ask you. Is that was your Bearcat in the Hollywood film Devotion, or was it already under restoration by that time?
It was already torn down. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not in Devotion.
And again, folks, if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat box, and we'll answer them.
Okay, I have an answer for your question. It has, last time it flew, it had about 2,260 hours on it.
That's a pretty impressive number of hours. I mean, even though it's an 80-year-old airplane, I mean, it's not something that you fly every day. So
that may not be its entire history.
Okay.
This is how it goes in documentation on these. It comes down to your calculations, and that's really it. I mean, sometimes documentation is lost and you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we know.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about this the paint scheme that we're looking at.
Again, this is the VX-63 paint scheme from the Fighting Redcocks when they were on the Franklin. And that's why I'm proposing this, because it's my connection with the squadron. I'd love to see it painted that again, but there's a lot of other folks that have some other ideas, so we'll see how that shakes down. We're not very close to painting it yet. We're gonna fly it to a paint facility when that time comes. Right now it has like a dark green primer on most of it, and that's the way it's gonna fly away to paint. And well, I'm sure there'll be a lot of other proposals in the queue as well, besides mine.
Hey, Steve, can I ask a question?
Sure.
John, what are you guys going to do to the propeller?
The propeller, there's no ADs against it. So it's sitting on the stand right now, so we can do a visual and NDT on it. But remember, it's a hollow propeller. So there's no, like say the Hellcat, the Hamstand and Hellcat propeller is different. It has a 5-year AD that you have to get done, but this doesn't have that requirement. So you can do a visual inspection and be fine. There is the prop governor, however, is a different matter. We're going to have to do some maintenance on it, but that's kind of where it stands.
Now, the pictures that we were looking at earlier are probably a couple of years old. These are more contemporary, of sort of updated as to where you are on work on the airplane.
Right, you can see. This is actually fairly recent. So you can see we're going back together, and everything's been reconditioned and repainted and so forth. So it's pretty exciting to see that come back. I've got a guy, Ed Johnson, who's really taken the lead on this, and you can see the red fuel filter there, and then right below that you can see the ends of the fire extinguisher ends. See those red ends? So that's fire extinguisher where the halon will come out. You had a fire in the accessory bay. And then looking to the left there, that's going into the gear well. And we're actually just about to install the aileron links, which will come out of one of those holes. It's on the farthest aft hole there, the smaller round one or oval one. That's where the aileron links will come out. And then you see that right gear is not quite in yet in that picture, but it's actually in now in the bigger left hole. You can see the attach point there. So it's kind of what you're looking at. And then you have the hydraulic lines going out for the gear actuator, because that's what that's all about on those lines there.
Was there a point where there has to be a point in the restoration where you stopped taking things apart and looked at putting things together? Was that something that you were there one day and you said, wait, we just turned a corner, we're not taking apart, we're putting back together? Or did it sort of happen?
Well, I wanted to get down to the firewall because I knew that the plumbing was very suspect, and in order to repaint and strip the firewall, you have to gain access to it. So all that plumbing had to come down, and you can see the that's the blue tank up there is a hydraulic tank. So that's also been as you can see, it's been completely overhauled and redone. It's like any other restoration you might see. And then in front of that will be the oil tank. And then the other components that live on the back of there's a big electrical panel that goes on there too, which is we're prepping now. But the only thing I really didn't do was we had our fuel tank. I did not remove. It's a fuel bladder, but it wasn't very old, so there's no reason to dive into that. I think we're good shape there. And of course, we had to gain access to the main spar and inspect and heat it, which we've done, and it's thankfully sound. Otherwise, we'd be in a different place right now. But
very true.
So that we're in good shape there. So I think we can full speed ahead to get this thing going.
Yeah, here earlier you had mentioned that the stabilizer was off and now it's back on.
Right. So you can see the vertical stab and the horizontal stab are installed. They're installed permanently, and you can see the gun bays are open. Which I don't know if the viewers know. Typically, when we go to air shows, we use those for our luggage. Hellcat's got a much bigger opening, so we only put a little in the Bearcat, which is really 5,000 pounds lighter than the Hellcat. I don't know if folks are aware of that too. But obviously missing the outer wing panels, which those are actually pretty well complete, and I just need to put the linkages on the ends there before we can install those. So, and I'm actually very close to installing the rest of the gear. I really want to get it back on its legs very, very soon, and that's been my focus, as well as the aileron linkages. There you can see half of the gear legs installed, and we're again very, very close right now to putting the rest of it on. We've just got done building up the wheels, so those are ready to go. So like I said, all of it's gathering steam. I got a lot of efforts happening, but like I said, I need a lot of help because it's hard. As you can imagine, running 5 airplanes and the whole maintenance department. So basically, how many airplanes do you have, Rob? 13 or 14 airplanes that all fly. So
that are flying, and a small handful that are non-flying and may stay that way, just because we have you have other priorities.
Exactly. So we have to, weigh things and see which ones can go or not. Of course, we always want to have them all go, but only so much you can do. But I think we did pretty well in the air show. I think this was the only one. This and the Spitfire are the only ones that didn't fly in the air show.
Oh, and mentioning the air show, for those who don't know, Southern California Wing has hosted an air show at the Camarillo Airport for, and we were trying to figure out how many years, but it's been more than 20, probably closer to 30 years, at least. And so maybe just tell us, a little bit about what happens during the show.
You want to take that, Rob?
Sure. To be correct, it's not really the CAF's air show. We're just, we're there. It's our home field. They have a little LLC that runs it every year and plans it, and then they put together all the stuff for the statics and the vendors and what they want to put in the flying schedule, and then they tell us what airplanes, and we go back and forth. We have CAF members who are advisors or actually sit on that planning staff and give them our ideas and work things out. And then since we're Warbirds, we typically will get the responsibility to put together the little, they'll have a Pacific theater segment and they'll have a European theater segment. And we typically will put together the little, I'll call it a choreography for what those different airplanes are going to do during those different segments. And then we'll brief it up with the other airplanes, because this group will reach out to other Warbird museums in the SoCal area and put together a really phenomenal history lesson for that covers pretty much the entire breadth of World War II, as best you can do in a 2-day air show.
Right. What are some of the other things that the unit does during the rest of the year? I mean, you've got the airplanes, obviously, and a lot of maintenance, but you have a museum as well.
You bet. So we now have 3 hangars. One of them we call the museum hangar, and we have a nice little relationship where we've developed with the Ronald Reagan Library folks, who are obviously a professional staff of putting stuff on display in the library there. And so we've built a bit of a relationship. We gave them some of our toys to put on display. They've helped us out as we've remodeled our museum. And that includes not only airplanes, and we kind of shuffle airplanes in and out of the museum, but artifacts and displays and photographs and all the historical stuff that you would expect in a World War II museum. Then we have John's Crib, the maintenance museum. And then we also have a much larger hangar that we obviously keep our airplanes in. We have a couple tenants who rent from us, and we'll use that to put on events. We have an event coordinator who will put on weddings and dog shows and you name it, to try and keep the cash flow going, keep the lights on. So we have a very active docent community, or little group within the volunteership that show up when we're open, and they give tours to people who want to come tour the museum. John's talked about the museum folks. Something else we'll do as far as kind of our education program, we have a fabulous cadet program that's even accredited. So primarily high schoolers can come in and join, and we have aeronautical engineering type of classes, that how to tow an airplane, aerodynamics, safety, how to put a fire out, all this stuff in addition to some other, what I'll call curriculum. And these cadets get credit for it. So it's an accredited program that our education team has put together that's really phenomenal and growing, and a great way. We have some wonderful evidence where we have a Hornet pilot who's been flying out of Lemoore for quite a while, brings the Hornet down a lot to our air show. He was our cadet way back. A Navy helicopter pilot who was a cadet way back. We have a JSX pilot who's sitting left seat. She was a cadet back a ways. So it's a good thing for the young people to come in, and we see them every week. And John, anything else to add?
Yeah, the cadets regularly come in maintenance. In fact, we have one of our colonels has been very active in teaching the sheet metal courses to the cadets, and I'll have them come help work on the warbirds. We'll get them crawling all over them and get them nice and dirty. So they all love it, and so we really get them involved. And like Rob said, that program, kudos to our team that is doing the cadets, because they're really doing a nice job, and it's growing like crazy. I think we're getting close to trying to put an annex in place or something to house them to a permanent location, which is really great news. So we'll see how that goes, but it's only because it's growing so rapidly, and so pretty exciting to see.
And that you worked right into what my next questions were going to be, and that was to try to paint a picture of everything that the Southern California Wing is involved in. It's more than just the Bearcat or the Spitfire, the Zero. I mean, the airplanes are very important, and obviously, John and Robert, passion of both of yours. But the wing is expanded so much beyond just airplanes, and community outreach, the events program, that it really again emphasizes that there's something for everyone in the CAF, and especially in the Southern California Wing. So if you're someone who likes events and planning and that sort of thing, there's some place for you, and especially want to recognize that cadet program, because that has really been a source of success and inspiration to other CAF units around the country.
Yeah, I think a little more to that is our ride program is a very integral part. It brings a lot of folks out. It brings a lot of fast. So we're almost every single week. We work Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and I think we're flying nearly every single day. for whatever reason. We sell rides, or we train pilots, or whatever. So you can hear that beautiful airplane noise almost every time you come out. And a lot of times, if you work hard and join, we'll try to get you up in one. So that's pretty exciting stuff. That's nice part of having such a large wing is that's a really, really nice privilege that we can offer. So
good. Robert, have you flown the Hellcat as well as the Bearcat?
I have.
Okay. Henry is asking which one you prefer, and what would be the primary reason?
Whoa, Henry! Thanks for putting me on the spot more than I already am. I've come up with this answer when people ask me, which aircraft I prefer the best, and I can honestly look at them and say the last one I flew.
There you go.
So they are all to expand a little bit. They all have their wonderful little nuances. They have their, there's the nostalgia that just can be overpowering. Sitting inside a Hellcat and seeing these, now dormant, unfortunately, machine guns sticking out of these wings, and just realizing what this thing did 80 years ago. So they all have that historical piece that you just you're honored to do it. But they all have their little nuances, their little goods and bads, and oh yeah, I got to remember to do this. So they're all wonderful. It's an honor to fly them. It's a huge confidence to strap one of these things on, knowing that John and his team are doing all those, modern day things to keep these aircraft safe. But as soon as I land, that was my favorite airplane. To compare them, the Bearcat is a little peppier, right? It has just a little bit of a crisper feel in roll, just because it's smaller wingspan. So it feels a little bit more like a sports car, where the Hellcat is. It is anything but lumbering. It's a very agile airplane, but just not as agile as the Bearcat.
All right, John. Here's the other. There's always two questions that come up. That's your favorite airplane, and then what's the completion date for the restoration? Someone always asks.
Well, there again, like I said, if I can get some more help and probably a little more money, then that'll just make things move faster. I'm hoping just to, and it's again, you can't hold me to this. I'm hoping for 2 years out. It seems reasonable. That's what we're. I mean, that may not be airshow ready, meaning paint job and so forth, but a flying airplane, or at least testing for flying, is probably in that time frame. That's what I'm really pushing for. So hopefully that answers that. It's pretty general. Again, there could be some hurdles getting in our way, but right now that's what I'm looking at.
Good. You had mentioned earlier that there are some original parts that are still available on the secondary market as well. How detailed or well equipped is your machine shop there? How much of the things that have to be built that you don't have originals for, can you do in-house, or do you have to send them out?
It depends. It depends on what you're doing. But like we do have a on-field machine shop that does have water lathes and computer. I mean, you can pretty much, I hate to use the word print, but you can pretty much make most things as long as you have example. Take for example, we're taking our Spitfire and our coolant radiators were clogged so much that was inefficient. So we actually are fabricating new ones out of aluminum instead of the original English. By the way, those Spitfire radiators were original World War II radiators. Mm-hmm. And so we're going with a brand new modern technology, all aluminum construction, which is going to be amazing. It's going to be probably half again more efficient and lighter and just altogether better. So that gives you an example of what you can do, because again, we have experimental airplane, so you're allowed that latitude. And of course, it's all backed by engineering and so forth. We're not just turning this stuff out on our own. But there, like I said, we can do a lot in-house. We have two wonderful guys, and we have computer lathes back there too, and all the old school type. But we have lots and lots of tools that have been donated. And again, I could probably use 6 more machinists. That's how much work I have, or moreover, sheet metal folks, because again, sideways helicopter means cracks. So that's kind of where it's never ending. You always got something to do, something to fix. It's just that's the way it goes. People don't realize these machines were not intended to last. These were meant for 10 to 20 missions max when they were throwaways. So they didn't really. So you could see the way they built them. They didn't necessarily have chafe protection or thick material. Of course, Grumman they did, but even then, there are some areas where it's very evident they were not intended to last the time frame we're making them last with this. So you have to replace these parts because of these wear problems that you run into. So being kind of vague there, but that's I have to point to the airplane to show you what I'm talking about. But that's it, really. I'll probably over-answered that question.
Well, here's an easy one. In some of the previous restoration photos, we saw lots of manila tags on all of the, especially on the firewall. One of our viewers is wondering what's the purpose of all those tags?
Well, it's a big giant jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? So you want to be able to mark everything. Imagine if you had your jigsaw and you didn't bother to mark anything, it'd be really hard to put it back together, wouldn't it? So we have a whole plan together that we are using, so you can basically break everything down, and you have the labels on there so you know where it goes and what it does. So then you can fix whatever it is, and then you'll know where to put it back. So that's kind of the reasoning for all that.
Very good.
Pretty typical for aviation.
Nick is wondering, how challenging is it to attain positive pressure tests on all that tubing?
It's not very hard, but most of it. Remember, the pressure on here is not terribly big. Hydraulic pressure on these are 1,500 psi, opposed to jets, where are 3,000. And a lot of oil is only your oil lines are 80 psi, so you're not having to do a tremendous amount, and plus we're gonna really wring this thing out anyway. You're mostly worried about leaks at the fittings than you are a pipe bursting. So that's kind of the answer to there.
Good. We've talked about your website, and we've talked about Camarillo, but exactly where is the airport located for someone who's not very familiar with Southern California?
Google Maps will help you greatly, but right on the west side of the field, about halfway down. So exit Las Posas Boulevard off 101 freeway and go down Las Posas and what is that? Pleasant Valley Road, make a right, and you'll see a sign. So it's pretty available. You can go to the airport cafe and they'll tell you where it is if you get lost. But hope that answered that question.
Yeah. And then about how far is Camarillo from, I guess, Los Angeles? How far north?
From downtown LA, I would say it's about 50, 60 miles north.
Hour.
Yeah, about an hour drive now. You're dealing with traffic. So we got 1.5 miles.
That's at 3 a.m. though.
Exactly.
Any other time of day, it's a little longer.
There you go. So with that, Robert and John, we appreciate you taking time to be with us today. Robert, any final thoughts before we wrap up tonight?
Just to reiterate that, we're all volunteers. So come help us, come join us, come benefit from volunteering at such an organization with such a worthy mission. And there's something, it's a big organization, so there's something for everyone. Any interest you have, any skill you have, you can find something that is worthwhile for you to do, and then obviously worthwhile for the organization in itself. And then, back to the Bearcat, what a phenomenal airplane. The Grumman's last piston engine fighter. It's a prop rocket. So when you think about that, just an amazing airplane, a big jump in the pilot-friendly layout of a cockpit. In addition to, John somewhat talked about this, or was it Steve, that back in that era, it was all about the engine and the guns. And this thing was at the pinnacle of that, in mid 1945. And I'm honored to be able to take it around the pattern every now and then.
Very good. John?
Yeah, like we need people badly. And like I said, if you have a passion for aviation, you can find it here. I think I've been in aviation for coming up on 40 years. And to me, this is the best part of aviation. It really is. It's especially if you get an open cockpit airplane or say an SNJ or something, it's just really none better. Or if you get a steerman or something. But if whatever your passion is, I'm gonna find a way for you to find it, and that's what we want, because we want you to come back and we want you to enjoy your passion, and that's what I do. I come from my passion, and this is what it's all about. And we definitely have this in spades. If you love aviation, you'll find it here, whatever flavor that means for you. And we, like I said, I'm not gonna keep anybody from anything. This is let's find it, and whatever makes you tick or makes you wind up. I think it's a good spot if you love airplanes, and I certainly do, obviously. But that's it. That's what I have.
All right. Well, good. Again, for anyone watching, if you're interested in finding out more about Southern California wing of the Commemorative Air Force, would you like to join, like to support their projects, and especially watch for the Bearcat in the 12 Planes of Christmas, and help them out financially, however much you can give, they will appreciate it. I know it, because that will help get that airplane one step closer to being back in the air. And in fact, before we leave tonight, we're going to take a look at just a couple of real quick video clips that you'll be able to look at and remember what it was like when the airplane was up and flying. So there we go. There's a sight and sound that we're hoping to recreate in the very, very near future. Gentlemen, again, thank you for joining us. That is going to wrap up tonight's show. If you enjoyed it, please remember to share it with across your social media platforms. And if you do watch on YouTube, make sure you click the bell icon. You'll get notifications when new episodes are posted. We always value your input, so if you have feedback on this or any episode or an idea for a future topic, please send Leah Block an email at media@cafhq.org. Until next time, I'm Steve Buss. Have a great night.
Thanks, Steve.
Good night. Thanks, everybody.